Okay, I read the second omnibus of Homunculus. And, well, that being, the compilation of volumes 1 and 2, or rather 3 and 4 this time. And, I read the first omnibus, and I had so many praises to sing about it. I was like, it's a really interesting concept, and it is. And it has a really compelling story, which it does, and really good illustrations, which it does. And it's really good at drawing out tense scenes and increasing the tension more and more. And well, it continues to do that in the second omnibus, as the main character spends basically the entire time trying to figure out if he wants to rape the high school girl who's in the backseat of his car with him. Just pages and pages and pages and pages of that. And, I loved that building of tension in the first omnibus. The second one drew it out long enough to the point where I was just like, man, why am I reading this right now? I was like, dog, this kinda sucks. And I have a colleague who also read these first 2 volumes and kind of had the same feelings as me. We both got to that second book and we were like, yo, why this now? Why do we gotta dedicate so much time to this? So I don't know. It definitely demoted Homunculus from a fairly high priority read for me to maybe gonna drop this one. And in fact, 2 more omnibus volumes have come out since I read the last one, and I have not yet touched them. But I had that discussion with my colleague who also read the series, and we were both kind of going, we had kind of the same reaction. We were like, what the hell was that second book? But anyway, she read some reviews online from some like-minded people who continued with it and said that it gets better after that volume. So, at some point I might read more of that, but as of now it is very not high on my list. That one might be dropped, but time will tell yet. I have now read volumes 2 and 3 of The Summer Hikaru Died, and I actually just finished volume 3 as of a couple days ago, and I'm really glad that that one is fresh in my mind, because I am enjoying it more and more as it goes on. Volume 3 was out for a few weeks before I got around to reading it, because I was kind of on the fence about the series at first. But after finishing Volume 3, it's kind of gone up to high priority read. I want to read Volume 4 right when we get it in now, because I've gone over Volume 1 in probably my last batch of videos, where it's kind of about this high school kid who dies. He's dead at the very beginning of the story, but a sort of supernatural creature, some sort of being, has come back with his body and all of his memories, and is kind of trying to be him now. And it's about the characters kind of figuring this out and coming to grips with it. Most of them don't know yet, except for the main guy who was his best friend, and maybe were they love interests? I don't know. There seems to be a lot of sexual tension between them. Anyway, my worry after the first volume was I hoped it would continue to be this delving into the character's emotions, and that is kind of what it continues to be for the next couple volumes. It's a very, I don't know if cerebral is the right word for it, but it's not really a straightforward horror thriller series. You could easily compare it to something like Summertime Rendering, where it's about this small isolated town getting taken over by body snatchers, and the survivors have to figure out how to kill them and how to get the strategic upper hand on them before they can take over, and it builds up to like a big climactic battle by the end. Hikaru is very much not that, and I'm really glad for that. It's not about like people getting violently killed and being in a lot of like imminent danger. Instead, it's about like how the characters emotionally react to what's going on and how they are kind of coming to grips with what they're going through. What's kind of funny is like there's a part in the third volume which, I don't know, it might be a little on the nose, but the class is talking about this philosophical problem of like, one day there's a man walking in the woods and he gets hit by lightning and dies, but then out of the swamp there comes another being that looks exactly like him and has all of his thoughts and memories. And the philosophical question for that is, are they the same person? Does it even matter that the first person died? Or is he still the same person? Since nobody else will ever know that anything has changed. Because, you know, that is exactly what the main characters are going through. There's a really great part in the third volume where this kind of like body snatcher, like imposter Hikaru encounters somebody who kind of has a sixth sense and can kind of see or, you know, hear spirits and kind of is in tune with the supernatural. And this character kind of pieces together that Hikaru is not Hikaru. And in that moment, his first instinct is just to immediately, reflexively try to kill her so that other people don't find out. And it's this really kind of like gut-wrenching moment when you find out that he doesn't have kind of the same instincts that humans do when it comes to like preservation of life, or, you know, seeing that it's wrong to kill people, or that all people inherently have the right to live. And so you see a lot of those just like little moments where you get those reminders that he really isn't human anymore, and that he really is like something completely apart from humanity, but doing his best to try to be a human, even when that comes down to like relearning basic morality. Because, you know, he's self-aware enough to realize that, like, you know, these are things that he should know, you know, like these are instincts that he should have. And, you know, actually seems like very genuinely upset that he couldn't see why other characters are bothered by the idea of people dying. Anyway, very much looking forward to reading more of that. And I think I've said before, and I will say again, that I hope it's not a series that runs on for too many chapters, because I feel like it is a really rich premise, but also I think there's only so much you can do with that premise before it might start to wear out its welcome. So I'm hoping in the end that it's kind of a short series. I'm very eager to read more, and I would like to read more by the same artist in the future. So hopefully they will move on to some other projects that are equally as rich. I have now bought and read up to Volume 6 of Dai Dark, and Dai Dark is still a pre-order every volume kind of series for me. If you're a fan of the channel, you've heard me talk about it in probably every single recap that I have done in the last couple of years. And I don't have a whole lot of new things to say about it, so, you know, if you happen to be new here, if this is the first video of mine that you're watching for whatever reason, Dai Dark is great. It's by the same artist who made Dorohedoro several years ago. And it's immediately recognizable by this very, like, rough, grungy art style, which lends itself very well to the rough, grungy storytelling. But, you know, that said, the characters are always a joy to see. I love the way they interact with each other, and I love how everybody is like a big goofball, despite going through and committing horrible atrocities against fellow humans. I really like it when both Dai Dark and Dorohedoro are dealing with more like slice of life story elements, where, you know, in the case of Dai Dark, I like it when the characters are just kind of like hanging out on their spaceship and like goofing around with each other. Volume 6 had more to do with like a big climactic battle against this like organization of light, which opposes the main characters at every turn. You get a little bit of like interesting backstory about the characters, like the main character Zaha Sanko when he was kind of still in school, and like you learn about a rivalry he had with a shithead other character, which kind of comes back in this volume. But anyway, I would really love it if Dai Dark one day gets an anime. In that same vein, Dorohedoro recently had a Season 2 confirmed, which I never thought was gonna happen. Season 1 came out, I think, around like 2020, and we heard nothing about it for like 4 years after that. But I am always happy to see more. The only thing, and I doubt this will happen, but the only thing I hope they change is to not give Kaiman a big neon green Muppet head. You know, maybe make him a little more lizard-like in Season 2, but I get the feeling they're probably pretty committed to the same, like, largely CG art style that they had in the first season. Anyway, I was able to look past that for Season 1. I've even watched Season 1 more than once at this point, just because, you know, some of the CG is a little clumsy, but overall the artwork is just so gorgeous all throughout it that I cannot look away. So I guess, you know, not a whole lot to say about this volume. It's cool that Misatani Box is featured on the spine. She is possibly my favorite character. Well, yeah, other than that, I am gonna continue reading every volume and probably continue loving every volume. Alright, now I have read Choujin X volumes 5 and 6 as of this recording, and I am actually loving this series now. At first, it was like kind of a lukewarm recommendation. You know, a new volume would come into the manga cafe and I would be like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know, I'll get around to that one. But as of, I think, volume 4 or 5, this became like a high priority read for me. The more I read, the more I'm just like fascinated by the creativity of it. The illustrations are all just like so creatively composed in a way that's like really hard to describe. Like a big part of volumes 5 and 6 has the characters encountering this like godlike figure in this world of superhumans, and kind of a huge battle ensues, and it takes place on this like impossibly tall tower that is like looming over the city, and it's just this like really narrow spire that just goes like straight up in a line. And I love the way the artist conveys that, and how you'll see like a really wide illustration of the city at large, and how it looks like this tower should not be able to exist there. But you do see these characters like flying around and like doing battle near the top of it, and just the sense of like scale and perspective are like mesmerizing in that. But the main thing I love is just that the characters and like their powers and the illustrations of like the fight scenes and such are just so, I don't know, over the top doesn't feel like the right term for it, but they're very indulgent. Like, one character's power has a bunch of skeletons just coming to life and attacking everybody. There's another character whose power is to manifest into another person's greatest fears, and you see him turn into this just giant amalgamation of somebody's fears that have just become like completely indescribable and completely inhuman. And I probably showed that illustration in a past video because I think that was introduced around like volume 3. But I think like another one that we see introduced was there was this Choujin, this superhuman, who had a power where like anything that like passed through an opening in her body would be like transported somewhere else. And you see that she has been like bodily transformed into this like portal archway that people use now to get from place to place. And so, you know, it looks in a sense like, oh, this is just a magical archway portal, but it's actually like a living person's body that they're passing under to travel to another location. And it's just like, that is an amazing, incredibly fucked up horror concept, and I am all here for that. The more I read Choujin X, the more I am sorry that I slept on Tokyo Ghoul, and I think I am more than likely going to go back and read that manga at some point. But I have other things that I want to catch up on first that are kind of a higher priority, which I will get to a little later. Thanks for making it to the end of another segment of My Summer of Manga. Special thanks to the financial supporters of the Manga Cafe listed here. For our audience question this time, Donovan Grant on Twitter asks, most overrated and underrated mainstream manga in your opinion? That is a really good question and a really challenging one. I could probably talk about this for hours, but I'll try to keep my answer pretty brief. It's hard to pick an overrated mainstream manga because I have to look at something that I know a lot of people love and then go, you know, I don't think it's that great. But I guess for an overrated pick, I will probably say Frieren. I read about 7 volumes of this, and I thought it had a lot of potential. I really loved the premise, but in all honesty, I think it doesn't really live up to that potential most of the time. I think it has a lot of pointless diversions where I guess the artist probably just thought it needed to get a little more exciting for a little while. But I honestly would prefer it if it was more, I guess, slow-paced and thoughtful and thought-provoking, and I don't think it's trying to go for that very often. I think a lot of the things that Frieren goes for and a lot of the things that it does well are done better in what I would pick for my most underrated mainstream manga, To Your Eternity. It's a very similar premise to Frieren, both focusing on an immortal main character and all of the baggage that comes with that. But To Your Eternity has had 2 seasons of anime, and like everybody who has watched it agrees that it's great. Everybody who has read the manga mostly seems to agree that it's great. But that seems like a much lower number of people in Frieren, and I wish more people would check out To Your Eternity. Anyway, those are my picks. I hope nobody finds my takes too controversial, but there you have it. Thanks again for making it to the end. See you next time.